This is section 1.3, complex numbers. In this section we need to define I. I defined as the square root of -1. Now if you square that, that means you write it twice. And whenever you square a square root, the square root disappears, so you get -1. I to the third is the negative with the I together, or -I. Because you have 3 of them, this is -1, that turns into I. And I to the fourth is 4 of them, this turns into -1. The second pair turns into -1. -1 times -1 is +1. Quick way to remember the powers. On the outside, if you will put the powers, and on the answers, put them on the inside. For instance, you have I squared, I cubed, and I to the fourth. Again, I put them on the outside. Then on the inside, I put the answers. I is just I squared is -1, I cubed is -I to the fourth is 1. Then if you want to do I to the 13th, you just have to count. 1 is the first power, 2, you're just looking at the powers, 3, 4, and you keep going around. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, just keep until you get to 13. So I to the 13th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, this would be 12, and 13 would be right there. So your answer is on the inside, which is I. Okay, you can go backwards. -16, you just count backwards. Make sure you don't forget 0. So there's 1, 0, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and -16 would be right here. Now, if you have a very large power, all you need to do is divide by 4, because you'll notice there's 4 corners. And when you divide by 4 and keep the remainder is how many times you go around the last time. So 127 divided by 4 is 31 and 3/4. You keep 3 and you count to 3, so it's 1, 2, 3. I cubed is -1I. Now, to simplify imaginary numbers, if you have square root of -3 times the square root of -3, I would move the negatives out, so you have I and I, 3 times 3, I squared and square root of 9. I squared is negative, square root of 9 is 3. Notation-wise, if you put the I in front of your square root, that's just where we put it. We don't usually put it after. So if it's a number, you put it after. If it's a radical, you put it in front of. Okay, the definition of a complex number has 2 parts, a real part and an imaginary part. The real part does not have the I. Imaginary part does have the I, and it goes at the right side. So if we have the number 6 and 7I and 3I minus 4, and when we change those to complex forms, 6 will be 6 plus, there's no I next to it. 7I, there's no real part, so it's 0 plus 7I. And the 3I minus 4, we need to turn around, -4 plus 3I, so the I is at the right side. Now you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide complex numbers. If you're adding, you just add up the corresponding parts, the 2, the 3, and make sure you change the -4, and then the I, the minus I, and the minus -5 makes +5. I distribute to make sure it's cleaned up first, and then I combine. 2 and 3 minus 4 is 1. I minus I plus 5I makes 5I. And you can combine those that way. Now you can multiply. You just multiply 3 times 2, 3 times 3, I times 2, and I times 3I. I times 3I. Just simply FOIL it if that's what you want to call it. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9I, I times 2 is 2I, and 3 times I, 3I times I is I squared. Now this one you change, because I squared is negative, turns into +3. And then, so you have a 6, 9 minus 2 is 7I, plus 3 makes 9, plus 7I. Continuing, we can divide. Whenever you're dividing, you take whatever's on the bottom and you change it to its conjugate, which is opposite. So you have 2 minus I, you multiply by 2 plus I. And you do this on the top and the bottom because anytime you put something on the denominator, you have to also put it on the numerator. That's essentially 1. So you multiply the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 3i, 2i, and I squared. And on the bottom, 4 plus 2i minus 2i minus I squared. Then we convert our I squares to ones, or negative ones rather. So it's 6 plus 5i minus 1, 4 plus 1. And then when you clean that up, 5 plus 5i, and you can take a 5 out of all those. This is 5 over 5, which is 1, 5 over 5, which is 1, and that will simplify to 1 plus I. Okay, now graphing complex numbers. You have a xy axis, and the x-axis is the real part, and the y-axis is going to be our imaginary part. So if you have 2 minus 3i, you want to graph it. Again, the x-axis is the real, so we're going to go 2 on the real axis and minus 3 on the complex axis, which is the y-axis. So you just look at it like a point, 2, negative 3. So you go 2 to the right and down 3. So the point 2 minus 3i is going to be down here. Now, you can use a graphing calculator also. There is a I key, and the I key can be found by pushing the second key, and it's right here by the decimal. It's an I right there. So you can use the calculator to add, subtract, multiply, whatever these are. It will do it for you. So you can use that when you're simplifying complex numbers. And that's everything with complex numbers in section 3 of chapter 1.